Over a year ago, I reviewed the DJI Mini 3 and whether it's still worth buying in 2024. I've just taken it on a trip to Norway, and now I'm back in Canada with an updated take, covering the pros, the cons, a surprising range test, and whether the Mini 3 still holds up heading into late 2025 and beyond. I brought the Mini 3 as a backup for my Air 3S just in case, and it was a good thing that I did.
How far is it?
It looks like we're going to the top of that.
Like how far?
Let's break down how the Mini 3 performed in Norway, and we'll also compare it to some of the footage that I took on my Air 3S as well. I'll be leaving raw photos and videos in the description box below if you just want to download those and play around with them. Plus, I have a free LUT and preset for you to try out on your own footage. Let's talk about the pros of the Mini 3, and the first thing that I want to talk about is the range test. So a big reason why I wanted to update this video was the range test. When I was back in Canada, there was a lot of interference last year when I did it, and I only got 1,500 feet, which these things are rated for much more. So we're gonna fly it right now. We're kind of in the country in Norway, so let's put it up and see what kind of range we can get. Also, I hate asking, but it goes a really long way if you could just leave a like. 3, 2, 1. Thank you so much, and let's dive back in.
I actually think we're gonna get a little bit more than what we got in Canada. There definitely was a lot of interference where I was. Yeah, see, we're already at 1,500 feet, 4 bars, no signal interference yet. And I'm also getting a responsive remote. What happens when your RC remote starts to die is like, you can't even press the record button. It won't allow you to, and then the screen gets all choppy. But this is awesome. We're at 2,200 feet now. This is a lot more in line with what DJI's website says, 2,700. And you can see the bars here were orange. So we are getting to warning territory. I think we're gonna hit 3,000, at least double what we did in Canada. Let's just keep going until we have to return to home. And I do find like flying in Norway, some areas do have a lot more like signal interference, just naturally with towers and things like that. But again, we are in the country right now. I think like we have pretty good conditions. We're down to 2 bars, but at least I can like pan around. It is a bit glitchy, like the screen's glitching when I do this, but not terrible. Oh, now it's getting troublesome. So we're at 4,500 feet and starting to have some interference. 3,000 more than back in Canada, so that's pretty insane. You can see the snow on the mountains pretty good here. We're actually gonna make 5,000 feet. Poor Chunger has to hold the camera for this long. Guy's hurting, I can see him shaking. And you can see that stutter. Now that stutter won't happen on the video, but definitely here, and let's see. And it still lets me start and stop recording. So let's go a little bit further. We're at 6,000 feet, and I have a sneaking suspicion that we're done here. Because it's going like really bad latency in and out, but we are gonna make 6,500. Again, weak signal, battery's at 78. This is a really cool shot, wow. But again, like if I try and like steady fly this, I don't really know what I'm doing because there's no transmission really. It's just like choppy. But I'm so impressed with this. 8,000, we've kind of lost it. Let's, and there we go. RC signal lost. So that's, this is what's gonna happen. Don't panic. The drone's gonna do its own thing to try and like give you signal as quick as it can again. It's stuck on this image or frame. There we go. We'll manually bring it back once it turns. But it says like our arrow has turned and we're coming home, but we can't see that yet because it's struggling with transmission. And it's slowly starting to get it back here. So what we'll do, because there's 69% battery, we do have a long way to come back. We'll cancel that and we'll just manually bring it back in sport mode and we'll be good.
One of the coolest pros of this Mini 3 is that it shoots natively vertical, so the gimbal just rotates its axis and it shoots 4K 30 frames per second, and this is without a crop like the Air 3S has. If you have the need to shoot vertical for social media and things like that, this is a big selling feature of the Mini 3. The same thing goes for horizontal on this drone. 4K 30 is going to be the max frame rate you can get, but if you're okay with 2.7K footage, you're actually going to be able to go up to 60 frames per second. Another selling point of this drone drone if you like to edit your images is that it does shoot raw, and it just gives you a lot more flexibility in post to play around with those photos. In terms of video quality, this drone is definitely much better than the Mini 2 and Mini 2 SE, as well as the 4K, and that's because it offers high dynamic range. The Mini 2 SE and Mini 4K are definitely still great quality for video, don't get me wrong, but I do see a noticeable bump in video quality with the HDR as opposed to the SDR quality on those drones. I found that the HDR quality just gives you a lot more detail in the shadows, and overall the image just looks a little bit cleaner. That being said, this drone doesn't have 10-bit color, it still has 8-bit color, much like the Mini 2 SE and Mini 4K, which just means that editing in post, if you're trying to get a more cinematic look or stylized look, it might be a little bit more challenging. The Air 2S, the Air 3, and the Air 3S all have 10-bit color, which just makes grading a whole lot easier.
Okay, so a quick little ad story time here. 5 years ago, I was a teacher with a distant dream to be a creator and bring my ideas to life. Flash forward to present day, and that dream is becoming a reality thanks to Artlist. They literally just helped send me to Norway to create 3 short films with some of my best friends. This is their 3rd year doing it, but they're giving away $100,000 again to a person who has an idea for a video that they've never acted on.
That's really cool when you get the shot, you know?
See, many of us are trying to make it in this online creation space, and Artlist is so cool because they're fully supporting that. If you're like me and you have a dream to become a creator, this Artlist 100K fund is the perfect start. Even if you don't win, it's going to challenge your creativity and get your idea out there. 2 years ago, they literally helped a creator reach space. If this interests you, create a little pitch for the idea that you have and tag artlist.io. Be sure to use hashtag Artlist100K fund, and happy creating.
Another thing I absolutely love about this drone is the battery life. So it's rated for 38 minutes. I only brought one to Norway, and it does have the capabilities to fast charge on a portable charger, which I found super helpful. So I flew it once in the mountains, and then I would just plug it in and maybe walk down. Halfway down, I would be able to just put it up again if there was like a cool scene, and I absolutely love that about this. So don't feel absolutely obligated to get the Fly More combo. In terms of price for this drone, it's actually quite inexpensive in the grand scheme of things. So you're looking at $419 US with the standard remote, or $549 with the screen controller. But these often go on sale, so definitely keep an eye out for that. I just wanted to drive home the size and portability of this thing. It is so tiny, especially compared to my bigger Air 3S, that it fits inside the Air 3S case with everything inside it. So you can just like pop the drone in the top compartment, lock it up, and it fits so cleanly. When I was going to Norway, I had to look up like the drone laws there. They're pretty lax. However, I did need to spend an hour getting a drone license, but that was because my Air 3S weighs like 700 grams, whereas the Mini 3 only weighs 249 grams, and you don't actually have to take the test for something that small. If you're just starting out and you're uncomfortable with your skills, it does have quick shots on it, which is a great place to start. It'll teach you just kind of like some flying techniques, and it'll do it for you, and then you can learn how to manually do it after. So it does have some cool features there. However, it does lack a little bit on the follow you features. There are some hacks you can do to get it to track you sideways, but really that's not the main focus of the Mini 3. If you're looking for something like that and a little lesser quality but within the same price range, I would say the DJI Neo is really good at that. We talked briefly about the controller options for this, and you can get the one with the screen or without the screen. I find that I do enjoy not having to like pull out my phone, plug it in, and set everything up. I like having my phone just as like BTS. Maybe I want to like film the drone taking off or something like that. But when it's tied up with the controller, that is kind of annoying. A lot of people will be strapped because you're saving almost $150 for the controller without the screen. But I would just say like it's not a necessity, but it's nice to have if you have the extra cash. A big question I get asked about this drone is, can you fly it professionally? And I would say for weddings and things like that, you absolutely can. Because of the sensor size, I would be mindful of the low light capability of that. But if you're in like perfect broad daylight, there's ample light, you're going to be completely fine getting away with it. Just be mindful that you can't grade the footage as well because it's 8-bit color instead of 10-bit color. My last pro is that there are tons of cheap ND options for this. Definitely go pick them up, like maybe a variable ND filter. I think I bought mine for like $34 or something like that. and it just allows you to get that natural looking motion blur for your video. So highly recommended, because then you can have the proper shutter speed for your frame rate. Thankfully, I don't have a long list of cons for this drone because it is a really good value. I guess the biggest one that I can think of is that there's no log footage, and I do like to do some coloring in post-production. However, I did find that the 8-bit color Rec 709 out of this drone looks really good, and you still can push the colors a little bit with a simple LUT. Here's the example of the Rec 709, and here's a LUT that I applied on top of it, and you can kind of see the difference. Another con of this drone is that it doesn't have collision sensors on it. It only has sensors on the bottom of the drone. So if it's your first time flying and you're learning, this could be a detriment to you, especially flying sideways. This is typically where drone crashes occur. So just be mindful of that, start in a park and go from there. We talked about this drone having some quick shot features, and a lot of people like hyperlapses. I've seen a lot of them online. Here's one that I did with my 3S. But the Mini 3 doesn't have those features, unfortunately. You're gonna have to buy something a little bit newer for that. The last two cons I wanna talk about is sensor size. It is quite small on the Mini 3 compared to that of the 3S. And again, you just have to be mindful of time of day when you're actually shooting, because it can deteriorate the quality pretty quick. As you probably know, the best time of day to shoot is at sunrise and sunset. And as the sun is going down, that's when I see the quality start to drop on something like the 3. So you just have to be mindful of that when you're out shooting. And lastly, the fact that this thing is so small and portable, it actually poses a risk when there's high winds. I've almost lost drones to this, and in Norway when we were hiking, there were like tons of winds at the top of the mountain. So it's definitely something to be mindful of. I'd rather fly a bigger drone so it's able to handle those winds, but in a pinch, it can kind of do the trick. But a lot of my friends who had like the Mini 3 and Mini 4 Pro on this trip, they just opted not to because they were a little bit sketch. So now that I'm back in Canada with these two drones, what's the verdict? What do I do here? Do I keep both drones? Do I sell one of them? I think the biggest thing for me is when I shoot professionally, I'm gonna need the Air 3S and that 10-bit higher quality from the sensor. But I do think that if this is within your budget, this is your first drone ever, I think you're gonna be absolutely blown away with the features and quality of both photo and video from this drone. If you're like, Maddie, I didn't understand half the shit you were talking about, and I have a smaller budget, I would definitely say the Mini 2, Mini 2 SE, Mini 4K would be a good way to go, or maybe even the Flip. Or if you need follow mode and you're on like a small budget and you're okay with more like iPhone quality video, the Neo's a good one as well. I've done reviews on all of these. And if you're on Marketplace and you're like, I only have 150 bucks, even the Mini 1 actually holds up today.